It's a beautiful day, Outliers, and it's a beautiful day because we get to spend time together. How are you doing? My name's Niiamah Ashong, and thank you so much for letting us be a part of your journey here today. On today's Outliers Edge Roundtable, we brought together four incredible outliers to share how they keep leveling themselves up to play at higher levels of income, impact, and identity. Let's just jump into this and give you a chance to get to know the outliers that are here today. So why don't we do this here? Sarah, I'm going to come over to you and get us started here. If you can share with us a bit more about you and the game that you're currently playing, that would be awesome. Tell us more
Mhm.
about you and the game that you're currently playing.
Well, thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the space. So my name's Sarah. I'm an authenticity coach, and I also have a podcast on the side that you can say that it's something I started from the beginning before I had my business. I think that was like a railway for me to actually start the business or even get confident in myself to share a little bit snippets of my story. And then from there, I'm like, let's kickstart the business. Let's see what that's like. It was pretty challenging. However, it's something that I feel is in my heart because, adding purpose, adding impact, I'm sure you know what that feels like for you or anyone really in this, space or in this game of business. So, I think my whole devotion or dedication is to really make an impact, have a purpose, and have sense of, giving and, people coming back to listen to something that feels authentic so that they can apply into their life. And that's when they can relate to it in some way. Um, because I feel like there's so much loneliness in the world that I felt like if I use my story and kind of how I came out of that place, then I was able to help someone, even if it was one person, 2%, doesn't matter the amount, but it's just adding value and being of service. I don't know if that answers your question, but this is kind of what came up when you asked that question.
Yeah, well, like what I get is that you're playing the authenticity game right now more than anything else, and
Yes.
even the way that you answered that question was you being in alignment with it. There's one thing to say be authentic, and it's another thing to simply be authentic. And I get that you're
Yes.
playing that game because I see you right now. Thank you,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yeah.
Ilya, let's get to know you. Share more about you and the game that you're currently playing.
Sure. Thank you for having me on the show. And yeah, great to be here. I'm Heyo Podolskiy. I have a podcast as well called the Podolskiy Method Podcast, focused around parenting athletes. A little bit about myself. I am a certified public accountant. So by day, I work for the biggest litigation funding firm in the world called Burford Capital as a SOX compliance officer and internal auditor. And on my off time, I coach ice hockey. I work for the New York Rangers as one of the lead hockey instructors. I work with the USA Hockey as a coach developer. I run a skate sharpening shop and coaching travel hockey all around. And on top of that, I'm on the board of a nonprofit organization called Sagacious Minds, and on the board of forensic accounting for American Board of Forensic Accounting. So I think for me, a lot of the things that I do is balance, and we hear that word a lot, especially with folks that are working in the corporate world or having their own entrepreneurial lifestyle. To me, balance just comes between all the things you do and just rounding it up together. I think that kind of makes up um, me as a person, and I like to be busy and put in a lot of work in and heart into everything that I do. Again, just bringing value, not just in work or as a general practice in my office, but also to folks around me, to my local community, to kids and families that, as much as I can help them through sports or through my skill, I do so. I'm also a father of three young men who all play hockey as well. So they're all athletes. So that kind of brings everything into one big picture.
I'm enjoying the big picture here. And I think one of the things I like here is about the bigness of that big picture. Like there's something I get about you that playing small is not a place where you like really like to be. And so we get a chance to explore that and build off that here in today's conversation. Thanks so much for being here, Ilya. Andrea, let's come to you next. Share more about you and the game that you're currently playing.
So my name is Andrea Austin, and so interesting that I springboarded off of Ilya. So I am a former CPA. I worked for the largest accounting firms in Canada. But the reason I bring that in, and I found it so fascinating, was that I'm actually tackling right now how to bring love back into business. So there's this juxtaposition, right, between having been in the financial world and now bridging that into what I would call the metaphysical world, right? And how do we align business and love? So that's the game, as you would say, that I'm playing right now. And it was funny, I was super resistant to come on today because voicing that in a financial world has been a growth process. But I don't want to hold back any longer. I do want to challenge the concept of retained earnings and balance sheets and all those things we've made up that really aren't representing the heart of business, right? So that's my game and who I am. And thank you for letting me voice that.
Thank you, Andrea. That was interesting. Like, I know you said led me, but like, I don't feel like I led anything here. But what I want to say is thank you for taking the stage on this, taking the space and to put it into this place here. It's so cool. I love this environment because the way that outliers work, Andrea, just your introduction alone might have already given someone the insight they need for today's conversation. Just the fact that you came and you stepped in and you said it, like you got me thinking. Yeah, you got me thinking. You have me like connect. Like things are in place. So I appreciate you being you. Bring all of it, please. I'm excited to see how we play with it. All right, Lacey, bring us home. Let us know more about you and the game that you're playing.
Yes. So my name is Lacey Dean. I am a podcaster, multi-passionate, do a lot of different things, but have been in the space of coaching and podcasting for the last 2 years. I myself am a complex trauma survivor. I grew up in a lot of chaos and a lot of dysfunction, and throughout my life of learning the hard way, had to recognize that so many of these things were skills that I didn't have. And so I started recognizing patterns by my experience as a nanny. I was a nanny for 13 years. I still work with kids, but I started recognizing in the home structure how we learn these things and just the level of childhood and the curiosity and the freedom that we have as kids. And then little by little, we're conditioned and we're taught and we experience things that shape us into the people that nature versus nurture argument, you know? And so I started recognizing these patterns and in that time really started reparenting myself and started having the same conversations in the morning with kids that I worked with and how I was building up their little development and psyche and diving into development, and then started working with adults and realized I was having the same conversations, the same core fears, the same driving components that drive our behavior to meet those needs. And so once I started learning those things for myself, it felt like a cheat code. Like I felt like I unlocked something where I went, what do you mean? We can actually learn how to do things that drastically change our life, and we don't have to be the sum of these experiences or what we have known. And that changed my life in every way. And now I get to help other people walk through the path that I've survived. So I'm very passionate about teaching the skills, but also creating a space to be 1,000% honest, to learn to accept what is, to feel what we feel, but to tell ourselves truth and love, and to make empowered decisions from that place. So my podcast is called Get in the Mud. We explore the messy progression of what it means to be a human in process and not being scared to own it because we all have it. So that's who I am. That's what I do at this moment. I'm always changing though.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Lacey. I'm always like, what's your game you're currently playing? Because I'm like I hang out with Outliers. I might come in a couple weeks later and something else has shifted up. Ilya, I see you
Right.
just unmuted. Is there something that's coming to your mind right now?
I was just gonna say what you said. I think I got a little goosebump going on just was saying to you, I think you're coming from a good place, and glad to be on here and meet you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right, y'all. So let's keep playing. The game's already started, but let's keep playing. As I told y'all before, the conversations with me are very emergent. The agenda is what shows up in the room. And Andrea, you said something that was really playing. Actually, I want to put in two places. One, Ilya, you put in something that got me thinking about playing a big game. Like as you were saying things here, there was just like you're like, I work at one of like the biggest like firms doing this. I'm like working with the New York Rangers and USA Hockey, and like I'm on these two different boards. And what I loved about that was just like the expansiveness of it all, right? And I'm doing this other thing, and there was like I wanted to start in that place with us just like being in the bigness of whatever we are creating in the world, right? And so I want like that's the first context that I have that I love for us to stay in. Andrea, you brought up being super resistant to coming on and voicing things, and you're like, you mentioned like you want to challenge the concept of balance sheets and retained earnings, and I thought that was really like a fun way of putting things, right? Um, the outliers who are listening to this feel like y'all. They are up to big things or want to be up to even bigger things. And yet they're facing within them some resistance around it. Some resistance being like, this is, I know the status quo. The reason I was successful is because I was able to see the game that was being played and I played it. And now I want to like either play in a different league or a bigger league. And I'm like, but I may need to break some of the rules in order to do that. And so I'm going to toss this question to you all. I want you to interpret it how you interpret it, and we'll see where the conversation goes. But I'd love for y'all to speak about like your experience and how y'all are like either currently breaking rules, how y'all navigate like that resistance of challenging what is with like what's authentic to you. And yeah, let's just speak that into this space here and see where you all take it. And I like what I'll do is I'm going to mute myself. Is anyone feeling called to start us off in this part of the conversation?
I would love to, because
Yeah,
this is
Lacey, let's
something I'm
go.
currently working through. As we talked about in our coaching call, this is something that I think as somebody who is a creative or somebody who has a business or a passion that is in your heart, in your soul, in your everything, right? Like you feel it in your bones. You will go against the structure. You will go against because it's yours. There's nobody else that exists but you. And so what I'm learning right now is I've had all of these subconscious ways of taking in information about what does it mean to be a life coach? How do you make money on the internet? What do you mean? How do you do this in a way? Download this free course, do that, do this. And it felt so inauthentic to me that I was doing the motions and there was momentum, but there was something in my gut that said, you're in the right space, but you're in the wrong lane because I was following other people's lanes. And it was subtle, but I had to really become mindful of who was pouring into me. What was I taking in? What accounts were I following? Was I looking at this as a lens of how am I serving or what am I gaining from this? How can I convince somebody to work with me? And it just felt icky. I don't know how to explain it other than that. It wasn't in alignment with my heart and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So I think when it comes to really challenging this space, it's also recognizing that we are the first person occupying it and it's ours. It is fully ours. It is sacred because we decided to do it and it can change tomorrow. And giving ourselves the space to evolve and to change. So much of the resistance that I have felt has been this expectation and standard that I put on myself. Nobody else is holding me to it. I can change everything tomorrow. I have the free will to do that. So, really giving myself the courageous and brave freedom to say, I changed my mind, or I actually don't like that, or this doesn't feel like it is in the right space for me, and making changes accordingly instead of holding myself to this invisible standard that is ultimately made from people and other people's expectations or my own expectations or fears. So, really getting honest with myself and saying, this is the space that I create, this is the space that I serve, and leading from that space has really changed everything for me. But that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, Lacey, if I can actually piggyback right from what you were saying and jump into this conversation. Um, for me, and I think it relates to you a lot because I think you talk a lot about taking action and changing. right? And I think what I've learned in my experience is action and the process of changing leads to happiness, in pursuit of happiness, right? Because that's what most people are trying to do. Even, the struggle, the entrepreneurship, the work, and all the hours and days that you put into what you do, and what you're trying to find a happy place. And so, when I was young and I was an athlete, I was wrestling in high school, and I remember that I was the most accomplished. I had the best grades and the best results when I was busiest. And the times that I wasn't is when my grades went down, my self-esteem went down, my experience went down. And so I never wanted to feel that way again. And so I realized that, action doesn't just create change, but it also creates happiness. But more importantly, when you accomplish a goal, I always feel sad about it because it's the end. You ever watch the movie and you get to the end of the movie and you kind of like, man, like it was a great movie. Like you kind of you almost get teary-eyed, or you get upset because you're at the end of your journey. So you kind of have to find the next one. And so the I think you touched on that point, and I couldn't agree with you more on that. You got to be able to change. You got to be able to adjust, and as you progress and you keep growing and putting in the work, I think that's where the happiness comes from.
I very
Oh,
much agree. Sorry.
no, go for it.
I really resonate with that. Like most part of it is that taking action and like feeling the fear and that doing it anyways. There was, stages in my life, like for example, like before I started, and going back to your story, Lacey, about working with kids. I did study child and youth care. Maybe it wasn't something I wanted because it was like really triggering. So then I was like, maybe I need a break. So I think sometimes giving ourselves breaks can feel really difficult because there's like pressures from mom, dad, whoever, like society, friends. What? You want to quit to do that? So it's just like too much pressure that I felt really hard to take a decision. But, going back to the point of like, I just remembered what mattered to me in the moment, what my value was, and what is going to help me move forward. I think with that, I had to really listen to my voice, and that meant that I had to shut down everything else that I thought I was. Like the stories, the beliefs I have, the inner narrative. When I was a kid, I was told, like, maybe you're shy, you can't do this, you're not smart enough. Things like you didn't get good grades and you need to succeed, then you won't be able to survive. So there was a lot of pressure that I had to, there was like inner judgment, people's judgments, what they're gonna say. So I think a part of it is also remembering that what matters to you, like what truly resonates. It might not matter to somebody else, but if it matters enough to you, then I guess you'd find all the way to make it possible. And that's just remembering that that truth of yours, what is true to you. Why does it matter that people have to say about you if it's so you feel it, like you said, like Lacey, you feel it in your heart, you feel it, it's tingling, it's you feel goosebumps. So I think to go after that, but also to really be kind, to really be kind. Like it's a very hard journey. However, on those obstacles, you learn in the way that um, without leaning into that courage, you can actually take a step and you actually have that courage. Everybody has the courage. Nobody on this earth doesn't. But it's about listening to that courage. What am I willing to take right now to get me closer to where I want to be? So yeah, I really resonate. So I'm glad you guys shared that. Yeah.
I just have to say too, it's so beautiful as you were talking about that. When you talked about taking that risk and doing it anyway, you just lit up. You just lit up on the screen, and your smile was just, it just shows how it's such a lie that other people aren't going through the same thing. It's so funny to me that we are so individual, when in reality, if we actually like sit in front of another human being and connect, we recognize we're all going through the same things. We have the same fears. We're worried. We think, we feel so many similarities. It's, are we willing to be honest? And so that same passion that you have to do that, I guarantee you, if you're passionate about that, there's somebody who's dying for that lifeline of your passion and that inspiration of going, well, she feels that way. Maybe I can feel that way, you know, and honoring that. A lot of people are too scared to do that. And that's why this group and the people listening, you know, it's not everybody chooses this, and that's okay. But doing it is brave and courageous. So I just wanted to speak to that because I see your light and it's needed.
And Sarah, I think you mentioned something that is one of the biggest reasons why I started my podcast. And when you think about youth sports, there's a lot of this insecurity and a lot of these negative condensations or conversations that happen with kids that we do inadvertently. Some people do it on purpose, some people don't. But those words and the opinions of other people can have a detrimental or a very positive effect on each other, right? And so for all the listeners out there, listening to us talk now, I think it's extremely important to learn to tune out the noise and to be brave enough or courageous, as you put it, to do what you really are setting out to do. I find myself immersed in work, so I don't have time a lot of times to listen to the naysayers, as we call them, right? Or the people who are just kind of, no, that's never going to work. Like if you're going to start a podcast, nobody's going to listen to it. No, it's never going to work. If you want to open a business, nah, that's never going to happen. And you just got to go out and do it. It's okay if it doesn't work for somebody else. It's okay if somebody else doesn't do what we do. But for those that do and that want to, just try it. The worst thing that happens is you try something else. But you're not going to know how much you love what you do unless you tried it for at least a minute or two or a week or a month, whatever it is. And so I think, to your point, I think that was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to bring the Podolskiy method to life and talk a little bit about parenting athletes, is because it starts from a very young age where, we go, I like to say we go from wow to how. When a kid starts walking, you're like, wow, that kid is walking. That's so cool. Wow, that kid just started reading. And then you start asking why and how at some point and say, why'd you do that? How'd you do that? Where'd you go? Why are you doing this? You should do it this way. You should do it that way. And you start, coordinating more than listening. And I think that change happens at a very young age, but it kind of translates into what we do today. So, obviously we kind of broke out of that structure a little bit, hence being here with Niiamah. But I think that's, it's a big distinction to think about.
I love that we're breaking out of the structure here. Like, that's what the name of the game is. Andrea, I'm curious about any thoughts on you, because like you actually inspired this question for me here. So curious about anything that's either come from the original question or really just wonder like what's flowing through you right now.
Yeah, I think all of us are saying almost the same thing, which is intriguing to me, each in our own way. My interpretation of what drives us is and making decisions is, are we honoring ourselves? And that's not something we're templated for, right? Many of us have been templated to serve our families or our organizations. I remember where I worked, it was called Blue Blood, which was intriguing. It was like an identity, right? But that identity wasn't loving myself and doing what my heart called me. So, I mean, Niiamah, you brought it into the room. We learn how to play the game. I played her well. Don't you worry. But I wasn't honoring I call it the love or the heart inside of me. And so it took time to reset. I would say bench myself if I was playing hockey. I had to bench myself for a few years and go, okay, like, What do I really want to do? Because I had programmed and patterned what I thought life was. And so when I look at the call to action, my curiosity or my question for people that are listening is, what is the call to action? Is it the call to love yourself and do what's in your heart, or to follow another rhythm or pattern? And that's the distinguishment, right? Because it's too easy once you start, and Lacey brought it up, to follow what everybody else tells you you need to do to have a successful life or a successful business. And that's the false truth. That's the misnomer. And I love how each of us is bringing it into the room.
I would love to just ask you a follow-up question, if that's okay.
Sure.
What does success look like to you now that you've been through that time of slow down and questioning, and I'm sure just breaking all of those those
Totally.
systemic internal beliefs, that drive us. I'm so curious to see, one, what caring for yourself looks like right now, and then also what does success look like for you? What does that mean?
All of that just means that I'm now happy. It's funny that Ilya brought that up, right? I've created a very rich life of different connections, different organizations that are actually influencing humanity. And so it's like this richness of soul. I'm going to use that language, but it's not being driven by what I have to do. It's more about that desire of wanting and enjoying. If you could see my view right now, you'd see I'm looking at a river, right? So there's this richness in all aspects of my life. I'm not compartmentalized. There's the language. I couldn't quite find the word. I've not compartmentalized myself anymore. Me, my business, my life are one.
Yes, I love that so much. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for the question.
So y'all are getting me thinking here. I appreciate you leading into the game aspect of this here. It's something that is very pleasant with me. Sorry, pleasant and present. Both of those things I think are true in this case. Um, and as we're talking about this, I'm hearing how y'all are thinking, how y'all navigate things, and almost like Lacey's question just now on what success looks like for you. I'm curious about the rules of the game that you've decided to play. Right. And so I'm curious for you all, like how have you
Question.
rewritten the rules? What are the rules for you? How do you get points in the game that you're playing? Like because I look at it like I'll play like the too much game. I like if I give myself points when I'm able to get someone to uh do something that to me I take as they're like, oh man, that was a lot for them right there. I give myself even more points when I tell them, hey, you're welcome. You know, and so I'm curious about when you think about it could be on a micro scale or on a macro scale when you think about your business, the impact you're making. What are the rules of the game that you have right now? Ilya, I'm coming to you first on this one, just because I'm drawn in. Let me know about some of the rules that you play by, and then everyone just pick up the conversation from there.
Awesome. I think for me, the biggest thing is to help the folks around me, and whether I'm in my corporate job and working with people, um, I love where I work today in my corporate world, primarily because of the people I work with. I think they're genuinely wonderful people. They're extremely smart, but they also look to help others. And so even the business, litigation funding is a hard business to sometimes to understand and what they do. But I think in its core and the purpose is to help, set things right and do the right things for the folks around the world. In addition, I think for me personally, you know, just being able to help families, through educating their kids, whether it's in sports, um, or around becoming adults, because when you're working with youth athletes, you're at this critical stage, right, of development. You can empower them or you can break them. And so it is a very fine balance, and every single day, did I do it I try to learn from it. So I found that some of the best coaches out there are the ones that never stop learning. They're not necessarily the ones that played in the NHL or some crazy levels of competitive sports, or you have 1,000 accolades. I think it's more of just being able to continuously teach yourself or learn from your environment and people around you in order to give that back. And the more you know, the more you can teach, right? Or the better you get at teaching. And so I'd say my point system comes from making an impact, a positive impact on people around me. And I'm not always successful, but I think I get a little bit better every day. And so that's really where I kind of try to find my edge.
I think from what I just following up on you, because I also have worked with kids for a really long time, and there's moments where I'm sure, as you know, as a father, where you just don't have it and you want to have it, but you don't have it. I've jokingly said I've been a part-time parent for the last 13 years. I've been with these kids for 40 to 70 hours a week. I know them better than their parents sometimes, and it's heartbreaking. And seeing how that relationship outsourced has really impacted the kids. But there's so many times, and I go back to the statistics too, of, it takes one healthy adult in the life of a child to just show them that there's a higher branch to reach for. And I know that that is a very developmentally susceptible time and malleable time for our nervous system to learn life. But for me, what I've also noticed is that the repair is just as important, and how we can be honest and transparent in our humanity too. And so when it comes to the way that in working with kids still, there's moments where I have to go back and say, I'm really sorry that I couldn't in that moment be patient, and you deserved that, and how to own that and teach the skills to do that too. I think so much of how I win in the game right now is to recognize the beauty of the mundane, that I can have goals in my business, I can have goals in coaching, I can have goals for what I think is going to happen. But at the end of the day, there's nothing other than right now. And sometimes that impact is smiling at somebody on the side of the road and having no idea what they're going through, or a willingness to just be where I am and to be kind, and really wanting my heart to be the thing that leads everything that I do. And like we were talking about, that space of alignment. When we're doing something from a heart place, people feel it, people see it, it resonates differently. And so that impact, of course, being growth and wanting to do things in action, and not just in an emotional space, but that the emotional space kind of leads all the action too. So we have to be transparent and teach ourselves and others like how to do this in a way that doesn't sacrifice ourselves, and how to do business, how to do life, how to do relationship in a way that allows the freedom and space to be where we are, to feel what we feel, and to learn and to make mistakes and to repair it well. But I think for me, that impact right now is just to look at the fact that I know I'm not going to be here forever, and my impact and the legacy that I have might not be within a measurable space, and that's okay too. Sometimes the impact is numbers, sometimes the impact is clients, sometimes the impact is knowing that you just made a connection with a little person or whatever, and you have no idea what could come of that. And I think planting those seeds is a beautiful thing. So that's my impact.
Derek,
So,
curious. Yeah, go ahead, Andrea.
oh, no, I
Nope.
was just going to add, Lacey, I think you just summed up what I would have said. We don't understand the impact when we lead. You say heart, I say love. And there's much more awareness right now happening on this planet to understand that when we lead from love in whatever form, that is actually what changes things. And so you can't see the results right now, and that's cool. But to me, that's the calling right now. So thank you.
Yeah.
I think for me, there's so much to say. Like from love to connection to having to be truthful to just voicing out to just um I think for me what was really a struggle in the beginning is that there was a moment where I had to be perfect at what I do, and that kind of stopped me from every single thing that I wanted, whether it was taking a course, whether it was hiring a mentor, whether it was deciding that maybe I no longer want to be in school and start something new, something fresh, something creative, something that was maybe not ringing to the bells of others that was around me, and they thought maybe I was crazy or like I'm going through a phase where this is not acceptable. But I think leaning into just that voice and trusting it, that actually my body knows it. It already does. It already knew it when I was a kid. It already knew that I love creating videos or I love having deep connections with people, and not resisting people, but having that curiosity around knowing someone. And that kind of led me to then be like, okay, I can actually be a coach because I can be someone who's present. I can listen. I can maybe see something that they can't see about themselves that I can guide them through. So I think dropping that perfection was something that I was kind of trying to play, and to then see that that was the very first step to get to where I want to be, because I can't be perfect all the time. I make mistakes. Yes, I'm a coach, but doesn't mean that I know everything. I'm just open. So I'm trying to be open. Don't be scared to make mistakes. And like you said, like you all said, that leading with your heart and um, just having that presence, just having that space of like, it's okay to have different ideas. It's okay to have different creative things that maybe in the beginning it sounds like a woo-woo or childish, but you know what? I want to maybe be a child. I want to explore again. I want to open up again. So I guess to anyone listening, it's also when you're taking a step and having that courage, don't be scared that you're gonna fall, right? Just like a kid learning to ride a bike. I know it's something that many people talk about and use this example, but I deeply resonate with it. Like um you cannot go for the things you want unless you fall and then try again. And you know that you can always try again. Who said you're not capable? Like who? It's like that frame and that box that people place themselves to, including myself, where I was. Um, it was limiting me. So why put yourself in a box when you can actually be a child again? When did we learn to disconnect from that creativeness? So yeah, appreciate what you guys shared. It just made me think about so many things. But yeah, that's what I would say.
There, I love the fact that you brought up failure because I think that that's probably one of my favorite things in to teach through youth sports is that it's okay to make a mistake, and the whole point of getting to where you're going is make 1,000 mistakes. I always tell the kids make 1,000 of them, just don't make the same one. So you can keep learning, keep
It's
getting
like a
better at what
thousand
you
different
do.
mistakes if I'm hearing you.
Right. Make 1,000 different ones. Just don't make the
Yeah,
same one. So you can
yeah.
learn and keep growing and keep trying things. And so I feel like that's the growth process, right? So, Sarah, great. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, I appreciate all of you all for sharing here today. Like, I just happen to look down and be like, wow, our time here has really flown together. And I'm just deeply grateful for each of you. I want to give Outliers a chance to get to know how they can continue down with you down the path. But before I do that, I have an ask of you, Outliers. We have an initiative here with the Outliers Edge Roundtable, and that's just to it's called the One Person, One Conversation at a Time initiative. My ask of you is to share this episode with one person in your life right now who you think would really benefit from it. And the reason here, like, look, please go out, share it on your platforms. We'd love to have a lot of people find out about this. Yes, that there's that. But underneath it, I think like one the real measure of our impact, rather than just like the listeners and all that stuff, the real measure of our impact will be that one person that you can share this conversation with and say, I was thinking of you. And this gets like I felt your heart and I wanted to share this message with you because I feel like there's something in this space that really will speak to you. And like there's just something about for me that realizes like I feel like the biggest benefit of all this will be these one conversations, one person shared, one person at a time. So please join us in that initiative. It would mean the world to me. Mhm. All right, Outliers. So let's wrap up our conversation here by letting Outliers know how they can go deeper down the journey with you. I mean, and share your contact info when it comes to that. Just share your best one, or best one or two. I know there's different ways that people can get in contact with you. Trust me, if someone really wants to find you, they will, and they'll find you in a way that meets them the best. But let's give them a path to go down. And then the way we also do this, that we also share an insight that you got from the conversation. Outliers are taken care of. There's nothing else we need to teach them. You don't need to like trying to sneak one in for them. This is just like for you. What are you walking away from this conversation with? And if you didn't get an insight from it, like no worries, just say that, and we'll let that breathe too. Okay. Awesome. So, Andrea, why don't we start with you? Would you mind sharing with us how Outliers can go deeper down the journey with you, and then an insight you got from today?
That's easy. So I would go to loveevolution.ca. That's where I'm hosting my podcast about challenging and bringing love back into business. And the one thing I took today was to shout out for myself to keep having the courage to having the conversation.
Thank you, Andrea. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for that courage. Sarah, let's come to you.
So they can find me at Sarah Alqhwaizi, so Sarah_Alqhwaizi on Instagram. They can find a link tree. I have my podcast, I have free resources and things that they can access there. One thing I got from this, I think it's the power of connecting with people who are like-minded and surrounding myself with the people that actually uplift me, and also challenge me. I think that's what comes up.
Thank you, Sarah. This is what we try and do here, right? It's good to have you. Lacey, let's come to you. How can they go deeper down the journey with you, and what's an insight you got from today, if any?
Yes. So my all of my social media is at Lacey Dean Coaching. And you can message me there. I have in my bio as well a link that connects you to my coaching page, my YouTube, the Spotify, and ultimately, if you want to work together, I can best support you in where you're at and discovering these parts of yourself. So feel free to message me there. I do have my email and everything listed there as well. And then one of the insights that I got from today, I got a lot, but I definitely resonate with everybody when it comes to challenging those fears and those beliefs that we have, that those are simply that, their thoughts, their fears, their beliefs of others that we can internalize. And so in this space, to be brave and to be bold is the willingness to be ourselves fully in it, and to create magic from that space. So really challenging those fears and making 1,000 of them, just making different ones.
Thank you, Ilya. Can you bring us home on this one?
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me on the show. It's great meeting everybody. You guys can find me at Sharp Skate New York on pretty much all the social media platforms, or look for the Podolskiy Method. You can listen to my podcast, the Podolskiy Method podcast, or just check out the podolskymethod.com for more information. And I think from what I've got out of this conversation today, I think my biggest takeaways are I love how positive everybody is. But more importantly, I love how fearless everybody is. So if there's one thing that we have to keep on doing and preaching, I would say just being fearless and taking action. Don't be scared to go where nobody else has gone, and leave some footprints.
Well, I appreciate each of you for taking the actions you do and for playing the games that you do with whatever rules and point systems you give yourself. I'm walking out of here. We're going out to create, like intentionally create 1,000 different mistakes. I just thought that was just really fun place to play with and make that the game. You get points for each of the different mistakes you get. You lose it if you're doing the same mistake twice. I heard that there. That was a really fun one here. Allies, we got to make up the rules to our own game. All right. And don't you forget that. Be intentional with it. Go out there and play hard and be an all-star at it. Because like it's here for you. All right. Here's the thing. Until the next time we talk, remember this: be you on purpose. Journey on.